How do you know you need a coach in your life? Heard a great quote from a friend of mine who's in this coaching field that I'm also in. And he said to me when we met up about it 3 or 4 weeks ago, he said, Laban, everyone needs a coach, but not everyone needs you as their coach. And it was a great statement, something that really resonated with me. And so I wanted to create a video today for people that have been maybe on the fence about deciding whether or not they need a coach or a mentor, however you like to describe what that role might be in their own life. And I'll share from some personal anecdotal experiences and also from people that I've become connected with that have achieved unbelievable success in their life. And by the way, when we're talking about success, it could be in health, wealth, relationships, or any combo of the three. And the areas that I am searching for in my own life and in the work that I do with my clients is to achieve the triple threat, which is health, wealth, and relationships. Because what good is having $100 million in the bank if you are terminally ill and you've got, you're going to be dead and you got nowhere to spend your money, and your family's devastated that they've lost you because you've focused all your efforts on this one particular thing and neglected the thing that actually allows you to sustain life. So I've been working in this space really professionally since 2019. So going on my 7th year next year, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot the hard way. And one of my favorite things that I've learned, I think, is understanding about what a really good coach can do for someone. A good coach, in my experience, is someone that is really proficient at a couple of different things. One in particular is asking what I would call a powerful question. And a powerful question to you as the coaching client might be something that you've never been asked before, you've never been asked in that particular way, that gets you thinking for yourself about maybe the current trajectory of my life is not the direction that I had hoped for when I was younger, and I want to change something. Often it allows you to see that maybe you're in more pain of staying the same than you are of the fear of doing the work, and not having a coach who just gives you all the answers, gives you all the advice, because that's not going to be very effective. It's like if you imagine if you were struggling with your weight and someone just says, eat less, exercise more. Well, one, there's a major flaw in that whole concept, firstly. But secondly, it's like, well, why would I listen to you? So are they credible? And if they're in fantastic shape, that might be something that's inspiring to you. But you never know how they did it. They might be strung out on drugs and using GLP-1, Ozempic, or Mounjaro, one of these things. And I'm not judging people for doing those things, but like if you want to do it the good old-fashioned way and understand how the body operates and how to bring stress levels down and toxicity and all these other things, then you've got to find someone who has first-hand experience in that particular space. One of my favorite examples of the power of having great mentors in my life is when I created this podcast. So on this channel, you'll notice that the majority of the videos that I've posted were interview style podcasts. And I wanted to reach out and connect with interesting people, and a lot of them were the best in their field. And so there's lots of people in the motivational speaker space, lots of really incredible athletes, people that have won Nobel Prizes and Olympic gold medalists, and people that have achieved incredible physical feats. And the reason that I wanted to reach out to those people was because when I started this out, I was completely and utterly destitute, broke. And that was the result of a lifetime leading up to that, dealing with addictions in lots of different things, but in particular gambling. And then when I did give that up in 2015, by the time I went out and started my own recruitment business in 2019, I had no idea what I was doing, and I completely ballsed it up, and I ended up not making a single dollar from that business and liquidated all the assets that I had to fund my lifestyle. Now, if I'd had a mentor or a coach in that space, someone that I invested money into and was there for me on a weekly or monthly basis, whatever it might be, that might have turned out very differently. Well, it turns out that the main reason that didn't work out was because that wasn't my highest excitement. And this takes me back to how to find a really good coach. What you'll find is when you go to someone that you maybe want coaching from because of their particular experience or their background or what they've overcome in their life, you think you have an idea of what it is that you actually want help with. And what I think a really good coach can do is over time, usually within the first month or so, what will actually come out is the thing that you truly want help with. And for example, there was a particular client who wanted to give up alcohol, for example. Now, that's something that I've got very good experience in. I did it, I'm clean and sober for 9 years in August 2025. And I did it without 12-step programs. I did it without any intervention of any other sort. I just was able to figure out and reverse engineer the dysfunctional parts of my life and relearn the more functional ones and address a lot of the reasons why I was trying to escape. So the alcohol and the gambling and these other things were the symptom of the pain that I was experiencing emotionally, physically, spiritually, metaphorically, whatever. And once you are in a situation where someone can tease that out of you and you get to the real root of what it is that you actually want help. And in this lady's particular case, who had unbelievable financial success, she was carrying a bit more weight than she would like, but otherwise pretty healthy, was she just wanted to be liked for who she was. And a lot of the behaviors that she'd exhibited were people pleasing, and because she was very wealthy, she would buy the affection of many people in her life. And I remember one of the questions I think I asked her was along the lines of, if you lost all your financial wealth overnight and started out with nothing, how many of those people in your friendship group would still be friends with you? And the honest, realistic answer is most would disappear into the night. And we're not here to judge those people. That's just a symptom of the challenge that we're dealing with here. So how do you know you need a coach? Well, being in enough pain to take action is a really good place. It's hard when someone's pretty comfortable in life. They might be coasting along. They might have a decent job that they don't absolutely despise. They might be in a somewhat mediocre marriage. They might have health that causes them a few issues, but nothing really devastating. And so when you're in that state, it can be quite challenging for the person to see the value in investing in themselves like that. A lot of the questions that go into an initial conversation with someone to ascertain suitability, one, to see whether they're coachable, but more importantly for the coach, to see whether they can actually help them or not. And those questions can be as simple as, what's life look like a year from now if you keep on the current trajectory that you're going? Or what's the outcome if you don't change how your current marriage is and the impact that's having on you and your family? And when you ask people these questions, they have to think for themselves and generate the idea and the outcome of, this is where I'm already at, and if I don't address this, then things are going to get progressively worse. And with a lot of people, particularly people that have got a lot of money, time is their most precious asset. So a really good coach is someone that can help you compress time in terms of figuring out solutions to the challenges that you have. And some of the criticisms that I have of the counseling and the psychology space is that, and it's not really their fault, it is their responsibility, but in many cases they are taught a particular modality and they are not allowed to go outside of the guidelines of what they are educated on. And if they do, then they're at a possible threat of losing their practicing license, their medical license, whatever it might be. Thankfully, in the work that I do, I don't have those boundaries. And that might seem like, well, you don't have the qualifications. Well, the kind of people that I attract aren't really worried about whether I've got a tertiary education or not. Incidentally, I didn't make it out of high school. And that it is what it is. It wasn't because I was an idiot, it turns out. It's just that what they were teaching me when I was growing up were irrelevant to my highest excitement. What actually thrilled me and excited me was not taught in schools. And I went to a school in Christchurch Boys High, which was very good academically, very good sports. And I was mediocre across the board. And it wasn't that I was a bad athlete, it was just a lot of the people that go to that school, many of them go on to become professional athletes and very brilliant academics, that type of thing. I was, excuse me, I was very much a someone who thrived in a performance style theatre mode, and there was a little bit there, but I wasn't really encouraged to get into it, and so I never really resonated. But what I do have credentials in are overcoming addiction in all its forms, drink and ugdray and gambling and XA and philandering and limiting beliefs and negative self-talk. I had a bunch of incurable autoimmune diseases, which I was able to put into full remission, basically doing the opposite of what I was told with the traditional allopathic medical system, and meet an incredible woman who's now my wife. We've been together for 7 years, and it's like having a strong marriage and great health and finding your purpose are sometimes very attractive to people that are looking to take that next step. And many times, the people that I talk to that are considering coaching have never had a professional coach ever. And that's a bit of a challenge, because once you've had one and you've got someone who's at least half decent, then you have a much better idea of the kind of outcomes you can get. And I reference the thing not being the thing because that's what a great coach does. They tease out of you, for lack of a better word, what it is that you actually need help with. And then it's like feeling pain in your body somewhere, and for days searching around, you're not able to find where it's coming from. And then one day you hop out of the shower and you notice there's a giant needle sticking in your butt. And you go, oh, that's where the pain's coming from. You pull that out, and then the pain goes away all of a sudden. And that may seem like a pretty inane analogy, but it's very relevant, very true to what we're talking about here. The other thing you want to look for in a coach is someone who has achieved the thing that you are looking to do yourself. Because if you are hiring someone to teach you how to make $1 million a month, and that person, the best they've ever done is 10 grand a month, they can only speak from theory, which incidentally is what you get when you go to a lot of universities these days. And that's okay, but you're going to waste a lot of time, effort, and money on trying to get an outcome from someone that's really not qualified to help you in the area that you're in. So for me, a lot of people resonate with the fact that I've had some great success with my sobriety, for example, and then they can talk to me about what I did, and if they are hungry enough and interested enough and ready to take action in their own lives and not be told what to do and given all the information, because most people won't do it. They have to, particularly with this type of transformation, they need to see it for themselves. They need to maybe understand that if they continue down this trajectory, that their marriage might dissolve and they might lose access to their kids for 50% of the time. They know that they might be on the hook for child support when they're already struggling financially. And once people become aware of these things, then they can start to deal with them. And you would be astonished at the number of people, myself included, that we assume would know fairly basic things. And I have met arguably some of the most brilliant people on planet Earth that when I've shared something with them and they've learned about it, it was the first time they'd ever heard about it. And it might be as simple as someone that I knew that it's arguably one of the greatest transformational, motivational people on the planet was still drinking tap water. And where he lived had horrendous tap water. And that might seem like a silly thing, but for someone who was going through some major health issues, that was one of the areas that he could easily clean up his own diet and the water supply. And that's why a great coach can help you compress time. Because if you are focused on the future and solutions rather than going back to the psychologists and the counselors and there's some great ones out there, don't get me wrong, but the majority of them, in my experience, focus on the past and trying to diagnose what's wrong. it's like this whole ADHD thing that's just spiraled out of control, and these young children that are being put on medication for ADHD. And is it that, or is it the fact that their diets suck, and their mums and their dads are accidentally poisoning them with a bunch of synthetic chemicals that go in the food supply, and the fact that they're on screens all day and they're not running around, they're doing maybe 3 or 4 thousand steps? Is that maybe the reason? So rather than finding out 10 years from now that the medication that they put the kids on is actually causing a whole nother litany of health issues, the courage to speak boldly and honestly, which you get permission from the person that you are working with, gives you the opportunity to say, have you heard about this? Did you know about that? And then the person could go, what is that? And then you're able to explain it. Then you can use an anecdote of, when I did this, this is how my health improved. So I never give specific medical advice because I'm not qualified to do that specifically. But what I can do, and what I'm really good at, is pointing people in the direction of how and where they can find the information for themselves, so that they can allow that switch in their own brain to go off, and then they can go and pursue that and come to the conclusion. With the more practical stuff, because of the work that I do as a published author, with the podcast, I think I've released about 250 interviews over the course of the 5 years. I've been interviewed many, many, many times. I've self-experimented and biohacked a number of things. So because I'm constantly putting myself out of my comfort zone, I'm able to draw upon those anecdotes. And many times, from a health perspective, they're backed up through blood work or data that I've been able to track. For example, I wear a Garmin Epix 2 watch, which is a high-end fitness watch, for lack of a better word, that really focuses on tracking heart rate variability, resting heart rate, sleep, all the different cycles, and a number of VO2 max, and a number of other things. So I've got now years and years of data that I've been able to compile because I'm self-experimenting. So that gives me more insight when it comes to sharing insights and information. Well, let's talk about what are some of the things you can expect to have happen when you have a really good coach. Because it's not all plain sailing, and it's not all sunshine and lollipops. And if it is, you probably don't have the right coach. And what do I mean by that? For example, when I quit drinking, one of the things that I wish that I had been told about is, hey, Laban, by the way, it's very likely that you are going to eviscerate most of your social circle. Now, for someone who came from a people-pleasing background, who sought validation, when it happened and I didn't see it happening, it was really, really hard for me to take on. And it's not that these former friends of mine are bad people, they're not. It's just that we kind of grew apart, and then it just turns out that when you quit drinking, and you don't want to be around drunk people all the time. You can understand that, right? And what I wish that I had known, and I don't have any regrets on this, but now that I've gone through the experience and I can pass this information on, what I can tell people about is, by the way, you can expect, if you go through a big shift, if you've been a party goer your entire life and drinking has been one of the main things that defines who you are and how you're known, and you all of a sudden decide to give it up, you can expect some collateral damage from your social circle when you quit drinking. If you know that going into it, one, you can decide whether you want to do it, but two, if you know that, then you can make better, more informed decisions. And then the other thing that I talk to people about is, but don't worry, because what it does is it creates space in your life that you didn't have previously to invite other higher quality people that are big supporters and fans of yours that support you in your journey and don't judge you. Because what happens is, in not just my experience, the experience of many others, when you do decide to maybe give up drinking, that act of willfulness forces the other people that might be high-functioning alcoholics that you're friends with to assess their own situation. And a lot of people can't handle the fact that they themselves might be an addict as well. And that can be too much for them to take on, and they can lash out and attack you and try to sabotage you or try to manipulate you back into drinking with them so they've got a drinking buddy. And that's okay, but at least if you're aware of it going into this whole process, then then you know, right? Another example, when I was 3.5, my mum and dad split up, and that's 50% of marriages. And it was incredibly challenging for me as a young man to go through that. And there was custody battles and foster home visits, and a lot of the stuff I go into a lot more detail and context in the book Bet on You that I wrote, which the link will be here in the comment section. But what I didn't take into account was that my father, for example, who's still alive and I love him and forgave him, was not a very strong masculine man. In fact, he exhibited a lot of feminine qualities in terms of the way he showed up. He was not likely to get into big fights, and he would probably diminish himself and not push back and set boundaries. Whereas my darling mum came from a very abusive background in her childhood and had an alcoholic father. She was very masculine in her energy. And so I'm witnessing this as a child. And so that's my understanding of how relationships are, because there was no other functional role models. So when it came to being an adult and starting to date women and be with women, I was attracting the wrong women, and I was behaving in a very, very non-sexy way, for lack of a better word. And I was driving women away through this feminine style energy. Now, you don't need to agree with me on this stuff, and these aren't my ideas, but if you're looking to settle down and meet someone, particularly if you're a man, you need to de-learn the dysfunctional behavior that you picked up in your childhood and then relearn the more functional way of doing it as an adult. And when you do that, then you'll start to notice things are improving for the better, right? And again, that's where a great coach can come in and talk to you about this stuff. And the more depth that we go into with regards to the challenges that you might be having in your life, the more challenging it's going to be to find someone who ticks all those boxes. I've been very, very blessed to be in the rooms with some incredible motivational speakers and some of the best coaches on the planet. And they are phenomenal in their own rights. But they may not be suitable for someone who's just starting out. They may not be relevant for the person that's got a particular challenge. So you really need to work at finding someone that has the experience that you need in order to have something really relatable. And it's not that they specifically need to have that particular experience in their life, but they need to have some real world life experience when it comes to understanding you and empathizing with you in a way that they can communicate and ask the right kind of questions so that you can see for yourself where the issues are. Going back to the feminine masculine dynamic thing as well, one of these channels on social media that I love to watch from time to time, there's a few of them now, where they interview women on the street, and it's like a Friday night. It's in like a part of Austin, Texas, or somewhere around North America usually. And they get a young woman who may be in her early 20s, and let's say she is societally about a 6 out of 10 in terms of the level of attractiveness. And I'm not here to judge, but let's just use that for an example. She is asked a question, do you want to marry a guy? She's like, yeah, I would love that. Like, how tall does he need to be as a minimum? And she might be 5'4", for example, and she might say he needs to be 6 foot. So this guy's got a calculator that's plugged into the national statistics data, and it's like, okay, 6 foot. Now, how much money should he be earning? And she might say something like, oh, he needs to earn $250,000 a year, right? So they put that in there. Should he be fat or in good shape? And she, definitely in good shape, right? Should he have been married with kids or never married? Oh, never married, no kids. And then what age range, right? And so what happens is at the end of this interview, they hit the calculate button, and it reveals in reality the number of possible percentage men that actually fit that demographic. And many times it comes back and it says you have a 0.006% chance of finding someone with all those attributes. Now, why is that relevant in this video? Well, it's just a reality check. And no one's saying that there's not exceptions to those rules. But if you understand that and realize that there's real world consequences for our actions, that if you are to attract the person of your dreams, one of the great questions I love asking for people is like, who do you need to become in order to attract the person of your dreams? And I'm not asking you to change your fundamental personality. But if you are exhibiting many behaviors that are not congruent with what someone at that level, that caliber that you are looking for has, then why should they be interested in you? Why would they pick you when there's far better quality partners out there that they can choose from? And so once you understand this, then it starts to get quite simple. It's like, okay, this is the reality that I'm dealing in. And a coach is not going to placate you. A good one's certainly not going to placate you and say, don't worry, you'll meet someone special out there. Everyone's got their person. When you're a 300-pound blubbering mess who hates men and has a whole plethora of other fundamental issues. All right, no one's saying you can't be those things, but if you want to meet the guy of your dreams who's not going to be a complete douchebag, then that's what you need to understand. That's the reality of what you need to understand. And having someone that's fearless in having that conversation with you is really important. That's what you are paying for. You're paying for the truth. And it's not all going to be, hey, this is what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. But like getting that information is really handy. If only I had had that information when I was 19, I'm 45 now, where someone said, hey, Laban, before you start taking this heartburn medication that you've been told by the medical system is the only way that you can manage this chronic autoimmune reflux disorder you've got, maybe look at what you're eating and your lifestyle and shift that. Even if I hadn't heeded that advice, it would have stuck in here and I probably would have figured it out a lot sooner. 17 years it took me to figure this out. So again, when you go through these experiences, you've got something relevant that you can talk to people about. And again, that's why I think a really great coach is someone that can help you achieve those little goals. And 1% every day is a great margin. It's a great target to aim for because it's sustainable enough where it's not going to be overwhelming and things need to be gradual. Some of the other stuff that I do in the one-on-one coaching is include my wife, Anna, to help as well. She's a brilliant, qualified hypnotherapist and she works with the subconscious. Now, if you didn't know this, 95% of our daily actions are driven by our subconscious. And if you've got a lot of destructive behaviors that you don't understand why you do, going into the root and tapping into the subconscious is a way that you can really speed up that healing journey. If you don't, it's like going from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent to consciously improving and then towards mastery. That's really the goal here. And then as you go through this experience of working with a coach and you start to have some success in life, then you become a powerful resource for other people in your world that might need help. And you can give that to them for free if they are genuinely interested. Most people won't do a lot with that, by the way. But what you might find is, like a lot of coaches do, or a lot of people that began as coaching clients, they end up becoming coaches themselves because they have had success in being mentored or coached by someone that's shared insights and given them ideas that they've figured out solutions to major challenges in their life. And when you think about some of the benefits of learning about how to find your dream partner when you are in your 20s, as a woman, for example, as opposed to when you are in your late 40s and don't have children, and you realize that your value in the sexual marketplace is very low. And I'm not saying this to be mean, but this is very common data that's out there. You don't want to figure this out when you are past the point of being available to meet a really high quality man. And this is a seemingly contentious issue, but it's just the truth, all right? You go around calling yourself the world's best courage coach. You have to be in integrity with that statement. And that's that brings me to probably the final point for today. Because of the access of some of these incredible people that I've spent time with, very, very well-known, very famous, very successful people, the thing that's most important to me as a coach is being in integrity with that statement. And the last thing you want is people finding out because you're omitting anything as a coach that's shameful or whatever. Something will come out where you've been telling someone to do something and you haven't been following your own medicine. And that can destroy your entire business and your credibility, more importantly. So what I'm describing with the people that I've had access to and the coaching communities I've been in, they do exist. They are few and far between in terms of finding people that are really high quality. I'm positioning myself to be one of those people, and trust is earned, and credibility is also earned as well. And I'm not ever proclaiming that I'm perfect with all of this, but in the areas that people are coming to me for help, I want to be damn sure that I know what I'm talking about, and constantly open minded to the fact that I might be wrong on these things, and stating that as a caveat with all of this stuff. There is a great coach will never promise you an outcome, because it comes down to you, the coaching client. What a great coach can commit to is showing up, being there in a non judgmental voice, and committing to self mastery so that they can keep progressing further ahead. And going back to a lot of these really successful, well known coaches that were around back in the day, if you've written a book around how to maintain a really great, healthy body, and you are all of a sudden like 80 pounds overweight, then you better delete that book off the internet, or you better come out and fix something, because that will destroy your credibility. And I see this all too often, particularly with what's on social media. People doing anything they can for eyeballs and attention and to make money, because people, they're desperate out there at times. I would rather do this the slower, longer way in order to create the best kind of outcomes for the people that I work with, that I choose to work with, and that want to work with me as well. So I hope that was really helpful for you. If you are thinking about getting someone to work with in whatever area of your life it might be, take all of those things into consideration that I shared with you, and you'll make a much better decision. I'm not going to say that you'll make it perfect every time, and even some bad coaching is very valuable in a way that will become more apparent later on in life. It's like, how many people do you know that have spent money on programs and courses only to never do them, but there's something further down the line, years later, that they might be all of a sudden ready for, that information teaches them a way not to do it, or a way to do it that they hadn't thought of prior to that. So anyway, enjoy that. This is Laban Ditchburn, affectionately known as the world's best courage coach. Have a great day if you're not having one, and if you are, well, keep up the good work, would you?